Hey guys, I'm Avi from Musical.Engineering. In this video, we're going to talk about something that I hear a lot, especially from my older students. I don't have any musical talent. I hate this so much so that I want to really pick this apart and discuss why not only is it just wrong, but why talent itself is a construct that doesn't really exist. But before that, if you're already playing an instrument and want to write some fantastic songs, I have a gift for you. I put together a free guide that gives you 7 different ways to elevate any melody. Just head on down to Musical.Engineering and let me know where I can send my free gift to you. So, let's talk about that phrase. I don't have any musical talent. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this from clients, potential clients, around the interwebs. It propagates a myth about music that is just inherently false. Music isn't an innate ability that some people have and some people don't. I hate to break it to you, all of you who've subscribed to this mode of thinking, even the very skilled musicians, but you're doing yourself a huge disservice by thinking this way. Please pay very close attention to the word I just used, skilled, not talented. There's a huge difference between the colloquial connotations between these two words. And that's the context that I want to talk about this in. This isn't a discussion about semantics, so I want to be clear. When we think about talent, we tend to think about something that you're born with. When people think about skill, we tend to think about a craft that people have poured hours and hours into, and they've worked very, very hard to attain. This difference is huge and represents a wholly different mindset that we're coming from. Now, I know you can make the argument that a talented musician has had to cultivate that talent, but this is not really how we tend to think of the word colloquially, and that's what we're discussing here. Terms have colloquial connotations that tend to color the way we think about those terms. For example, we don't usually use the word talent to talk about a doctor, a talented doctor, or a talented financial planner or investor. We as a society see these as practical skills necessary for the betterment and maintenance of society itself. These are skills that people cultivate for their jobs. In contrast, particularly in the arts, we use the word talent. There are most likely a myriad of reasons for this. I can't speak in every circumstance, and any general statement made here is made with caution and with the knowledge that it's not going to be true for everyone. Many people don't think about being an accountant or a financial planner when they're younger. If you did, then congrats, that's pretty unique and pretty awesome, and more power to you. We need passionate people in those careers. But we do traditionally hear from children about wanting to be a rock star or some other type of famous artist or an animator or something creative. Talent is predominantly the term that we use when talking about these fields of study. I'd argue that this shouldn't be the case. The word talent at best minimizes and at worst completely ignores the countless hours that people have had to put into their craft in the arts. In many cases, this comes down to tens of thousands of hours that at worst can be completely ignored. To have all of that dedication and work be distilled down to an intrinsic trait is a major bummer. Personally, it makes me feel like people don't see the energy and the amount of hours that people take in terms of educating themselves and honing their craft. Unfortunately, this has a pretty big effect on the way artists are able to make a living for themselves and the way society values art. Since people tend not to see the time and education that artists put into their craft, it creates this dissonance in how artists are valued by society itself. Because they see artists as having innate talent, something that they enjoy, that they've endeavored to create a life doing, people are strikingly okay with not paying these artists what they're worth. And if you're an artist, I guarantee that you have certainly experienced this. You'll get paid in exposure. A mentor of mine, Daniel Felsenfeld, amazing composer, once related a story to me about the only time that his doctorate degree actually got him paid a little bit more than otherwise. He was being interviewed for a teaching position, and the interviewer looked at his credentials and asked, "Oh, you have a doctorate?" He confirmed, and was subsequently awarded $5 more an hour for his hard work getting that doctorate. Now that's not nothing, and academia certainly has its funding issues, for sure, but would a similarly educated person be seeing that small an increase in pay for a doctorate? I have other colleagues in my life, people who have worked extremely hard, some of the most passionate and well-educated and intelligent people that I've ever met in my life. They have doctorates, and they have nothing to show for it except debt. They can't get a livable wage in their field. In fact, many of them are bartenders and work in the restaurant or service industry. This exemplifies and cuts to the heart at how our society views the talented artist. Since talent is viewed as innate, something that we're born with, it devalues the actual work that artists are putting in to hone their craft, the education that they paid for, and particularly in recent times, the debt that they had to go into in order to obtain their degrees. Once we stop looking at artistic ability as an innate trait and more of as a cultivated skill, we can begin to look at it under a different type of lens. Since the arts doesn't usually lead to a life of extreme wealth or even a little bit of wealth, there's a tendency, especially a tendency among parents, not to support and value their child's artistic endeavors past childhood. Those artistic endeavors tend to be minimized, or at worst, completely repressed. Many people are told by their parents and their mentors that it's time to grow up and get a real job. By maintaining the fact that art and artistic ability isn't an innate trait, but more of a cultivated skill, we can successfully conclude that those who don't think they have any artistic talent weren't supported by their caregivers in their artistic endeavors. Psychologically, especially if people have experienced severe artistic repression in their household, they have most likely completely disowned any artistic or musical traits that they had when they were children. These are traits that their caregivers deemed undesirable. But this is only half the equation. If it was really just this way, then we would be seeing far fewer people striving to become artists than we do. The other side of this pendulum is the rebel effect. Psychologists tend to say that we either become exactly like our parents or the exact opposite of our parents. This is why, despite a lack of artistic nurturing on the whole, we still see many people striving to make a life and career out of their art. But what about caregivers who do, in fact, support their children in their artistic endeavors? Chances are, these guardians, whether or not they themselves are artists, encourage their children's artistic endeavors from a very early age, and there's no greater well of untapped potential than in a child. I was extremely lucky to come from a family of musicians, and because of that, I was allowed the time and was given the support to practice from a very early age. This means I was allowed to practice a whole lot more as a child and teenager, which in turn gave me the time to develop the skills earlier in life than some other people would have had the ability to. Weirdly enough, however, this can also reinforce the idea of innate artistic talent. Since we've been doing it at such a young age and for so long, it's easier for people to not see the time put into this craft. We're seen as having an innate ability rather than putting time into and cultivating a skill. Think about Mozart. He was dragged around Europe from the time that he was 6 years old by his father playing for people in the court. If you're being told to practice and cultivate this skill at that young an age, of course you're going to become amazing at it. There's a saying or a phrase that I like to tell my guitar students, particularly those who claim they don't have any musical talent. The most talented guitarist in the world would pale in comparison to the most practiced guitarist in the world. In other words, a guitarist who had zero musical support or artistic support from their family unit, but found so much joy in playing that they decided to practice as much as possible no matter what, would be far better in terms of technique and skill than the guitarist who maybe had all the support in the world from their family unit, but decided not to put as much time into practicing. So while the question of nature versus nurture certainly has a role to play, ultimately, the actual labor of practicing hour after hour with proper guidance is what truly creates and cultivates the skill of playing and performing music. Finally, let's talk about what this shift away from innate talent and onto a cultivated skill means for the everyday person. By tearing away the word talent from the arts, we democratize artistic ability for everybody in society. We give people who didn't believe they possessed an ounce of artistic ability the opportunity to develop these skills and these interests that were robbed of them earlier in life. This is immensely empowering. It gives people the opportunity to become whole in a way that they've always desired to in their life, but never actually thought they could due to conditioning and a little bit of brainwashing, to be honest. When I describe this to my students, it's like something clicks in their minds. They think, oh, I've had this all wrong my entire life. I just put enough time into it. Of course I'm going to get better at something. Because this makes sense for every other skill and endeavor that humans do. It's just reality. We're all born with musical potential. We all are able to tap our foot to a beat and headbang to a song. There's a literal part of our brain that has to do with processing music specifically. This trait is also shared by our animal cousins. I'm sure that you've seen a video of an elephant or a dog or a monkey or any animal seemingly dancing or moving along with some piece of music. This is all to say that artistic potential is hardwired into our brains. It's innately part of us. In a way, we all have musical or artistic talent. We all start the same. The difference lies in our ability and our choices to cultivate this skill. Is there a skill that you've always wanted to learn but were discouraged from learning from a parent or a teacher or mentor? Let me know down in the comments. I hope there is, because I have so much joy when I'm able to tell you that the only thing that's stopping you from learning this skill is yourself. Go out there and start learning. You have all the ability that you need. You just need to put some time into it. This doesn't have to be a change of career or anything either. Hobbies are extremely healthy to have. It makes us a more rounded and whole person. Whether it's music or visual art or doing your taxes, if you put some time into it, you can't help but get better at it. That's really what it comes down to. That untouchable thing that we all curse and bless simultaneously. The secret ingredient to every single success story that there ever was or will be. Time. If you allow yourself the time to get better, you will. It's impossible not to make progress when you put time into something. Now, whether you allow yourself to see that progress is another story altogether. And to that end, I'd like to relate a tale coming from Greek mythology. The myth of Sisyphus. Sisyphus pissed off the gods. Probably Zeus. That's how most of these myths tend to begin. And Zeus cursed him to roll a boulder up a mountain every single day. And at the end of the day, in the evening, Sisyphus would reach the top of the mountain with the boulder, and every morning he would have to start back at the bottom. In everyday life, we can't help but feel like Sisyphus. We keep grinding away day after day, feeling as if we're not making any progress whatsoever. But we're not Sisyphus. We may be repeating certain actions, but we're getting better at rolling that boulder up the mountain, until one day it feels like that boulder isn't there at all, only we found an even heavier one to start rolling. That is progress, if you allow yourself to feel it. Until next time, this is Avi from musical.engineering.